What is up? What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, the Prince of Petty. I'm back with yet another unfortunate video on my channel. There's stories that you read, and then there are the ones that kind of stick on your chest like a weight. Stories that kind of make you stop scrolling, lean back, and then kind of ask yourself, what the hell is going on in the world? This story I'm going to talk about today, it's confusing, it's disturbing, on top of the fact of it being just utterly tragic. This story is one of those moments that makes you question everything about the world we're raising our children in. Because this time, it wasn't some hardened criminal. It wasn't a gang member. This time, it wasn't a predator hiding behind some bushes. This time, evil wore the faces of children. And I know when you first hear that, your brain can't even process it. You're probably sitting there like, "Oh, Prince, no, that's no, bro, you're wrong with that one. No, you talk about the deaths of children. It's usually by the hands of the parents and X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. But no, it is. I'm actually 100% correct about this. This story doesn't start with a monster in the shadows. It starts in the neighborhood. It starts with kids playing outside. And it ends with a 5-year-old little girl clinging to life. This story here, you have to hear it to believe it. And quite frankly, I know I say that a lot because a lot of these stories are just completely asinine. But somebody sent me this news article and I couldn't believe what I was reading. So I went on YouTube and, of course, zero coverage. I was only able to find the bare minimum. I think in this recording, once I begin editing, I think I only have 2 news reports. Two. And that's not me picking 2 reports. No, that's it. It's just 2. News articles. There's multiple news articles, but they all literally say the exact same thing. No media outcry. Very little news coverage. And you're going to see why. Because we're talking about children. Not only the victim being a 5-year-old little girl, but ladies and gentlemen, the perpetrators, the criminals, is a 9-year-old little boy and a 10-year-old little girl. Let that sink in. Roll that unfathomable bean footage. God, I just said that wrong.
挽回千本桜影吉
A mother in shambles after she says she found her baby girl beaten and abused. For the first time ever, the child's mother is speaking out, and you won't believe who police say are the suspects. 19's Noelle Williams joins us now with this heartbreaking story, and we want to warn you, some of the images and details are graphic.
I literally saw the worst thing ever. Like, I saw my daughter unrecognizable.
What happened to Antavia Kinnebrew's daughter is something most people will have a hard time understanding. She says her bubbly, sweet 5-year-old daughter was beaten and assaulted. This picture showing hair ripped out of her scalp. Police revealing startling details. The victims and suspects are under the age of 10 years old. This is shocking news to the 21-year-old mom.
I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Kinnebrew's mother held her hand as she wept. She tells me out of safety, she does not want to share her daughter's name or show her face, but she explains what happened that day. She tells me on September 13th, she had dropped her daughter off at a family member's home near East 145th Street and St. Clair Avenue. Somehow, her baby girl walked out the front door. When Kinnebrew found out, she rushed over and saw her 5-year-old being treated by EMS several blocks over.
Her hair was scalped from her head. She had bruises and blood all over her body. Her eyes was filled with blood. Her lips and mouth was filled with blood. Her nails had dirt, debris of dirt stuck in it.
19 News reached out to Cleveland police several times to try and find out if there are any charges. If so, what are those charges? And if the ages of the suspects would hinder that. All police would confirm is that the victim and suspects involved in this case are under the age of 10, and any other information would jeopardize the investigation. Either way, Kinnebrew says her daughter is left physically, emotionally, and mentally hurt and now in therapy. She is grateful for the support of the community so far, but she wants help and answers.
I want her to just to be somewhat of a normal 5-year-old again.
In Cleveland, Noel Williams, 19 News.
Again, no charges have been filed, but we will continue to press police for information here. And as soon as we do hear that charges are filed, look for that first alert push notification on our app. We will continue to follow up with this horrific attack.
New today, charges have been filed against a 9 and a 10-year-old accused of assaulting a 5-year-old girl in Cleveland. I have got to warn you, the details of this case are so disturbing. I just don't want you to be caught off guard. Amaya Ward joins us in the newsroom with details on how the legal process works when we're talking about suspects that are as young as these kids are. Amaya?
Yeah, hey, Christy. Prosecutors filed charges today against a 10-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy. The charges against them include attempted murder, rape, felonious assault, kidnapping, and strangulation. We're told the two will be summoned to juvenile court at a later date. There's no minimum age for prosecution in Ohio, but experts say cases involving kids under 12 are extremely rare. Instead of focusing on just punishment, the juvenile court will now have to look at competency, understanding, and rehabilitation, questions that are especially difficult when the defendants are still in elementary school. Legal professor Michael Benza says that's exactly why moving forward with charges like these can be so complex.
Trying to prove what a 9-year-old even understands about their conduct, let alone what are they thinking about doing when they're doing this conduct, makes it very difficult to prosecute people this young.
Benza says prosecutors will have to determine whether the children are competent to stand trial, meaning they understand what's happening in court and can help their lawyers. He calls this case an outlier, saying Ohio's laws weren't written with children this young in mind. He also notes this case will stay behind closed doors due to their age. We asked Benza if there's a chance the children's parents could face charges. We'll have his response coming up at 5.
Yeah, very good question there. All right, Amaya, thank you.
Well, there you have it. So this happened approximately a month ago, September 13th, out in Cleveland, Ohio. Need I say more? Information just now getting out. I don't know if there was news reports that happened at that time, but again, I'm just seeing it. The articles, they're dated as of yesterday at the time of this recording. The mother, Antavia Kinnebrew's says she dropped off her 5-year-old daughter at a family member's house. What family member? Still currently unknown. But it was just an ordinary afternoon, or so she thought. Somehow that little girl, allegedly, wanders out the front door. A few blocks away, in an open field, she crossed paths with two other kids, a 9-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. Children. Let that sink in. A 9-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. Children, babies themselves. And then what happened doesn't even sound right coming out of a person's mouth. By the time Antavia got the call, EMS was already there doing their thing. She saw her baby girl and she just completely broke down. Fully understandable. Her little girl was lying there, covered in bruises, covered in blood, hair torn from her scalp, her eyes blood red. Through the articles, I found zero information on sexual assault, but I'm assuming the doctors ran a rape kit. Why? I don't know, but we'll get to that. Her mouth and lips swollen, full of blood, mouth full of blood. She said, the mother said, my daughter was not my daughter. That's what she told reporters, indicating that she didn't even look like her kid anymore. Because no mother should ever have to look at her child and not recognize her face. Paramedics rushed the 5-year-old to the hospital. She survived, thank God, but barely. She's in therapy now, trying to learn how to be a normal 5-year-old again. But here's what's burning everyone who's hearing this story, all 5 of you. The people accused of doing this weren't grown adults. They weren't drug addict strangers. They were kids themselves. And prosecutors didn't charge them with mischief or assault. Prosecutors charged them with attempted murder, charged them with rape, kidnapping, felonious assault, and strangulation. Let me go through those charges again. A 9-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl, after what they did to this 5-year-old little girl, they are now currently being charged with attempted murder, rape, kidnapping, felonious assault, and strangulation. 2 children, not preteens, not teens, children facing charges that reads like something from 60 Days In. But I've heard a lot of stories, but this one right here, this one makes you question everything about what's happening in these homes, because I keep asking myself, what does a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old know about sex and murder? What could possibly make 2 children that young carry out something this brutal, this violent, this cold? They're not old enough to drive, let alone get a permit. They're not old enough to work, let alone get a summer job. barely old enough to write an essay in school with proper indentions for paragraphs, but somehow old enough to destroy a life. Sit on that. You can't tell me they learned that on their own. So let me ask the question that no one in the courtroom is even going to think about touching. I'm going to say it. Should the parents be charged and are sentenced on the children's behalf? Because if their kids are this broken, this lost, this violent, then what kind of foundation did they eventually come from? What kind of home at that age were they being raised in? Remember, children are mirrors. They reflect what they see. If all they see is chaos, pain, anger, and neglect, then what do we expect them to eventually become? We keep saying, they're just kids. Yeah, they are. But who raised them niglet motherfuckers? Who let them become this? Because somebody was responsible for shaping that. And if you raise a child in chaos, don't act shocked when they start reenacting what you taught them. And then there's the other side, the victim, a 5-year-old baby girl. Who was she left with that day? Was this person really trustworthy or just someone who was convenient at the time? Because somehow that little girl walked out that front door and ended up down the street in that field. And by the time anybody even noticed, she was already fighting for her life. So how did those two kids get access to her? How did they lure her away? Who wasn't paying attention when it mattered the most? We've got a lot of systems and a lot of slogans about protecting children. But when it's time to actually watch them, to raise them, to teach them, suddenly everybody tends to disappear. Now, a 5-year-old has to live with nightmares. She has to live with currently her innocence just gone, her peace gone. And two children old enough to know right from wrong turned into predators before they even hit middle school. That's not a real tragedy. That's just complete and utter failure from top to bottom. Now, here's where things get tricky. Because once the public found out who did this and how young they were, the whole conversation shifted all of a sudden. Suddenly, the focus wasn't on the 5-year-old who almost lost her life. It was on protecting the privacy of the 9-year-old and the 10-year-old who almost took said life. You see how that works? Prosecutors in Cleveland came out and said the charges none of us expected to hear: attempted murder, rape, felonious assault, kidnapping, strangulation, charges that sound like something out the first 48, but they were being read out loud in juvenile court. And now every news outlet, every statement, every update, it's filled with caution. Uh, we can't say much due to the sensitivity nature of the case. We have to protect the privacy of those involved. Yeah, I get it, they're minors. But let's not get this messed up. A 5-year-old baby almost died. She was violated. Her scalp was damn near ripped off her head. She was left bloody in the field. And we're worried about privacy? You see, the system starts to fold on itself when the monsters look too young to be called monsters. Suddenly, it becomes about rehabilitation, about mental evaluation, about what led them here. Meanwhile, that 5 year old has to stare at her reflection every day and wonder why she doesn't look like herself anymore. And you can feel the hesitation. The legal world doesn't even know how to process this. They're used to adults. They're used to monsters that actually look the part. But when that kind of evil shows up wearing a child's face, now everyone tends to be uncomfortable all of a sudden. Now it becomes complicated. Now all of a sudden it's sensitive. Let me tell you something, it's not complicated. Somebody needs to stop hiding behind legal jargon and start saying the truth out loud. Because if two kids under the age of 11 can execute or carry out something this twisted, then the problem isn't just over in that field. It's in the homes. It's in the neighborhoods. It's in the things these kids are being taught and what they're being allowed to see. This isn't about whether they'll be tried as juveniles or as adults. This is about how the hell we even got here. This is about how long it's going to take you to lock up the damn parents. But lo and behold, news is being released, but everything goes quiet. Like always. That's how it always goes after stories like this. A week of headlines, a few press conferences, then silence. The Cleveland Division of Police says they can't release any more information. The Cuyahoga County prosecutor says it's a sensitive case, sounding like CPS. And just like that, another child, Payne, gets tucked away into sealed court records and confidentiality laws. But here's what we do know. That 5-year-old little girl, she's alive, thank God, and in therapy. She's learning how to be back into the world that failed to protect her. And she'll carry those scars, the ones you can see and the ones you can't, for the rest of her life. And as for that 9 and that 10-year-old, that 9-year-old boy, that 10-year-old girl, they'll sit their asses in a juvenile facility somewhere, getting their little evaluations, being called young offenders, having meetings about rehabilitations, if they aren't already free, and we'll never hear their names. We'll never see their faces, but we'll see the results of what they were allowed to become. Because you can't just erase something like this from a child's mind. You can't rehabilitate your way out of that kind of evil without asking, where did it start? This isn't just about what happened in that field. It's about what happened before that day. What kind of violence were they around? What kind of things were they exposed to? How many times were they ignored, left unchecked, or just simply handed a phone and told to be quiet while the world and technology raised them? We talk about protecting our children, but the truth is, some of us don't even know our children anymore. Some of us don't even know what our children watching. Some of us don't even know who they're talking to. Some of us don't even know what kind of pain they're carrying inside. And now we've got a 5-year-old survivor and 2 kids facing charges for crimes they shouldn't even understand. And that's not just a tragedy of one family. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a collapse of an entire generation's guidance. And you know what's wild? Every time something like this happens, we act like it came from out of nowhere. We sit there in disbelief, shake our heads saying, oh, how could this happen? But deep down, we already know how. We've been watching it happen. We've been ignoring it because somewhere along the way, we stopped raising our kids. We just started keeping them alive. We stopped talking to them. We stopped correcting them. We stopped being examples. And now the tablet is the babysitter. The internet is the teacher. And social media, that's the parent. We let kids consume violence every day. Music, games, YouTube, TikTok is all right there, clear as day. And when something like this happens, suddenly we want to act shocked and surprised. No, no, no. This is the product of neglect. This is the product of silence, of adults who don't want to be uncomfortable. We've got kids growing up with no discipline, no emotional structure, no understanding of empathy, just chaos. And then when that chaos turns into criminal actions, we look at them like they came from another planet. But no, they didn't. They came from our homes. They came from our neighborhoods. They came from our communities. And that's the part nobody wants to admit. We keep asking, oh, what's wrong with these kids? But the real question is, what's wrong with us? We've normalized everything. Violence is content now. Pain is entertainment. And parenting has become optional. So, yeah, I'm actually pretty flustered right now. I'm actually rather perturbed. Because while the lawyers talk about sensitivity and privacy, a little girl's life has been shattered. And two children are now walking examples of what happens when adults stop doing their job. This is a human failure from top to bottom. You ever read something so evil, so jacked up, you just sit there quiet? That silence in your chest that burns in your stomach hurt. Yeah, that's this shit. And I'm gonna say it plain. What the fuck is happening to us? Kids 9 and 10 charged with rape, attempted murder, kidnapping, strangulation, and felonious assault. You can't even wrap your mind around that. That sounds like some shit from a Law and Order episode. That is learned behavior. That's something they saw, heard, lived around, and no one saw fit to stop it. So yeah, I'm looking at you, the parents. Where were you? What were you doing while your babies were turning into Jason Voorhees and Charles Lee Ray? Because if your kids are out here scalping 5-year-olds, you don't get to pretend like you're innocent. You built that. You birthed that. You fed that. You raised that. And you let it grow. And the rest of y'all, the ones who see warning signs and stay silent, you're guilty too. I keep talking about people being silent. This didn't come out of nowhere. There were red flags, just a waving for years, I assure you. But as long as it wasn't your child, it wasn't your problem, you minded your business, right? Right. Now look at what your silence grew into. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Slap nuts number 1 and slap nuts number 2. Dumbass number 1 and dumber ass, the 10-year-old number 2. Uh, Prince, tone it down. You're talking about children. Fuck the two of them. Fuck their mama. And whatever tree they monkey ass climbed out of. We've got a generation being raised by screens and download content instead of standards. Parents who argue more online, talking shit, more than they talk to their damn kids. Mothers chasing clout, fathers chasing bitches, and nobody chasing discipline. You can't plant chaos and expect peace to grow. You can't teach neglect and expect empathy to be learned. And every time one of these stories breaks, people flood the comment section saying, "Oh my God, what's wrong with these kids?" No. What's wrong with us? We've traded guidance for gossip. We've traded accountability for excuses. We've turned every tragedy into a trending topic and then forget about it the very next week. Meanwhile, a 5-year-old little girl is scared for her life. She didn't ask for any of that. She didn't deserve any of that. And 2 children who should have been coloring in the goddamn book and watching cartoons just rewrote that little girl's life in blood. Think about that for a moment. So yeah, call it what it is. Evil. Bad parenting. It's generational. And until we start holding adults accountable for the monsters they raise, we're going to keep burying these babies. And let's be honest, somebody said it watching this video already. I know it. But I'm going to say it for you because I know for a fact you're probably scary and not going to say it out loud. You ready? They came from a single mom. I don't care. You know I don't care. If you're a single mom graduating college, working, and giving your kids a better life than you ever had, nigga, I ain't talking about you. But just understand, you are outnumbered by these ratchet, Section 8 living, vindictive, the daddy don't want them, so they run to child support crying because they can't buy snacks with EBT ass single moms. That's who I'm talking about, a very specific group. Those are the bitches. They're the ones mainly raising kids, doing shit like these niggas in this story did. Growing up to be the same niggas that shoot up the hood. And y'all act like y'all blind. These little nigglets ain't have a father from whatever rock they crawled from under, clearly. 0 values. 9 and 10? A 9 and 10-year-old that came from a father ain't doing no shit like that. And the ones who have done it, very rare. Few and far in between. Shit. This ain't just about Cleveland. This is about America. This is about every parent who's more plugged into their phone than their child's pain. Every teacher too scared to speak or get involved. Y'all built this. Brick by dirty brick. So don't act shocked now. Don't cry for the cameras. Because until we start demanding real parenting, real structure, and real accountability, we're going to keep watching children we raise grow up and destroy each other while the rest of us scroll on by. Hit that sad emoji, go to the comments for information, and then type, "Oh, this is so sad," and then swipe on up to the next video and laugh at somebody being kicked in the nuts. That's not justice. That's brain rot. And that brain rot, it starts at home. It all starts at home. Now get the fuck out of my face on the internet.
挽回I just been hustling my hoes. I just been dripping my hoes.